Welcome back to episode number 3 of Career Hunter. Today I have another great interview for you today. It's author and speaker Rick Gillis. Rick Gillis has written several books over job hunting and finding your career. And so we have a lot of information coming up. Again, this interview ran long, so I have split it up into 2 different parts. We'll be talking about the software companies use to scan your resume and determine whether or not to toss it out, and how you can format your resume. Throughout the course of these 2-part interview, we'll also talk about gamification, social media, and being able to get in front of the decision maker. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into the interview, because that's what you want to hear the most. And also, if you like the information that you see, don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss an episode, and share it with somebody you know who's looking for their next career. So let's dive right in. Here we go. Here's Rick Gillis. Okay, and welcome at this time, my guest on Career Hunter, Rick Gillis. Rick, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you. And I know that you have written a few books, and we're going to get into that. But for those who don't already know who you are, give us an overview of your background and your profession.
Wow. Okay. The fact is, I was employee number 1 with a group called HoustonEmployment.com. We were the first. Job board website in the greater Houston area, serving the entire southeast part of Texas, and then we grew virtually across the nation. I was employee number 1. I was the face of the company. I was out selling. I was calling on HR professionals, staffing companies, hiring managers, and as a result, I was learning employment. At the same time, I was asked to speak to job-seeking organizations and tell them how this new internet thing was working. That was back in 1997. So I consider myself a digital dinosaur in that sense. That led to speaking to groups. They got larger and larger. I've written 4 books on job search and employment. And I do a lot of one-on-one counseling across the nation. Developed a website, that's rickgillis.com. And I try to make this stuff as available to the public as much as possible.
Okay. And that definitely is a great background there. One of the books that you've written is called How to Find Your Next Job in One Day. Now, for that to work, is that assuming that you have kept your network warm and your profiles up to date in between job searches, or does that literally start from scratch and find a job that day?
Let me tell you what, let me qualify that. Let me correct you a little bit, Jacob, because the book title is not how to, and I hear this a lot, especially when I do radio interviews. The book title is not how to find your job in one day, it's learn how to find your job in one day. Because the reason I called it that is because you can read this book in literally 45 minutes to 2 hours. And that you will know what you need, fundamentally know the core of what you need to find your next job. And it's really important that I tell you that, and I really appreciate the question, because I have learned from my last books that I was writing the great American job search novel. People don't want a lot of information when they're out there looking for their next job. They only want to know exactly what they need to do today to be active and to help find their next position. Now, the job book is useful for the job seeker. It is also useful for the person who's on the job who might be thinking of another opportunity. So kind of to get back to your question, and is this something you can start from day one, or something you want to grow and develop the network and stuff? The answer to both of those is yes. The fact is, you should always be working your network. We know statistically, and don't know where these stats come from, but 60 to 80% of all jobs are found as a result of networking. If you're not networking, you're wasting incredibly valuable time, and that networking can be, if you're just a new college graduate, it can be working with your friends' parents. A lot of young people are concerned about how do they start networking. That's a great place to start. Of course, on the job, when you're working with people and you find similar mindsets and stuff, people who will support you and go out. But so to get back to the question, yes, you can use the job book to start your job search today that you have not been, let's say you're brand new out of college and you're ready to go to work, or you've been at home as a stay-at-home mom and you're ready to get back to work, or you've been unemployed for a period of time, or you just got terminated. Yes, it's a great book for that. However, it's also a fabulous book for that person who is actively seeking another opportunity. And so I hate to say it's one size fit all, but I will. The job book is a one size fit all. It's a very short, simple, easy to read book, and I wrote it exactly with that in mind.
Okay, so I will have to go back and double check here, because when I looked up the book on Amazon, maybe it just had it the title listed wrong. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay, and when getting ready to start your job search, what are some of the best ways or best things that you can do to prepare to be successful at it?
Okay, good question once again, and I'll tell you why it's a good question, and let me go back to the job book. Everybody, when they start their job search, the first thing they do is they create a resume, and I will categorically tell you that is the wrong place. Now, I work with entry-level college students all the way to C-suite candidates. I've helped place senior vice presidents, 4 CEOs, several CIOs, etc. I work with very high-level candidates as well as entry-level. I treat them all exactly the same, and the very first thing everybody has to start with, if you want to work with me, is to create an accomplishments inventory. You have to take a personal inventory of the value you're going to bring to an organization, whether it's a brand new college kid who does not, and by the way, when I say kid, I don't mean that disrespectfully. It's young people when I say that. No disrespect is implied or intended. But when I'm working with a young college graduate, the first thing I do is I make them go back through, and they can go all the way back to high school and determine their very best achievements. Those things are going to make somebody really want to take notice of them. And young people quite often don't have these great achievements. They haven't sold $1 million. They haven't created a new product. But they do have a lot of soft skills that employers want. Motivation, take charge, willing to take the lead, and as simple as showing up on time, dressed appropriately, professional, willing to listen, willing to learn, that kind of stuff. The accomplishments worksheet is actually, and that's what I call it, is the first 3 chapters of the job book. You will start, and it's important because really once you have taken this inventory, and I walk you through the steps on how to do that, once you have taken this inventory, resume creation is little more than formatting, but more importantly, taking this inventory preps you to interview, it preps you to negotiate salaries, it preps you to network, it preps you how to compete. And when I work with a client, my goal is that when we're done and they make it to the interview, my client is the most compelling and memorable client they have interviewed. And therefore, I'm hoping at the end of the day, my client is the only person who is remembered at the end of the day for having been so compelling and memorable, having expressed how they're going to add value to the organization, and therefore they're a natural for the hire.
Okay, and so what you're saying is, instead of just going straight to the resume, you have to first figure out what it is your skills are, list them down, and then the resume is just reformatting that.
No, I don't want to say skills. I think skills are really easy to do. Myself, I'm a public speaker, I'm an internet guy, I'm a musician, I'm a commercial real estate person. This is in my background. That's my skill set. Accomplishments are really what it's all about, Jacob. And the reason I say that is because, for instance, you and I just meet and we're in the elevator, and you've always heard about this 30-second elevator pitch. I don't believe that. I think it's more like 6 to 10 seconds. But let's say I meet and you're the person I have been trying to get next to to interview for your company. You're the CEO, you're the hiring manager, you're whatever. And if I come up and tell you, hi, my name is Rick Gillis, I want to get a job with you, that's not going to be very impressive. That's all about me wanting something from you. Whereas the difference is with an accomplishment, you make the statement, you say, hi, my name is Rick Gillis. Previously at one company, I was responsible for 49% of all sales that resulted in about $1 million to the bottom line. Is that something I can tell you more about? That is something now that I am telling you how I'm going to add value to your organization, and that is much more fundamental. Now, I'm hoping you're going to say, Rick, I'd like to talk to you more about this. And I get an invite into your office, we sit down, then I might start talking to you about skills. But the accomplishment piece, and listen, the accomplishments worksheet, this is not an inventory that's meant to just be an exercise, and it's not meant to be something you just use to learn to find your next job. It is meant to be for the rest of your career. It is meant to be a journal, if you will. You should always be able to express your value to your employer, what you're doing, working on today, 2 days ago, 3 days ago, 3 weeks ago, 3 months ago, last year. And that's very difficult to do if you're not actually noting this kind of stuff. It's amazing when you get to a performance report and you can express all this value, because don't assume that your boss knows what you're doing. Even if your boss is across the hall, don't assume that your boss knows what you're doing. Always be prepared to express your value. That also comes, like I said, performance reports, but it could be the difference between you and a promotion. It could be the difference between you getting terminated and the guy in the next cubicle, because you're able to express your value and he or she is not able to. So this accomplishments piece is based in your skills, but every skill piece you have to be able to say, matter of fact, let me give you the formula for an accomplishment. I was responsible for blank that resulted in blank. That resulted in is the middle of every accomplishment. I tell people every accomplishment has a beginning, a middle, and an end. The beginning is what you did, the middle is resulting in, and the end is that result. The employer is interested only in that result. See, I told you I was responsible for 49% of all sales that resulted in $1 million. Let me tell you what, as an employer, as a business owner, you really didn't hear the 49% piece. You heard the $1 million. That's what you keyed on, and that is of interest to me, and I want to bring you in and say, how did you do that? And one of the things that I tell everybody in my live presentations is when somebody says, how did they do that? You should do the little Snoopy dance inside, because the reality is I don't really want to know how much you did that or how you did that as much as I want to know, can you do that for me? That's when I'm going to hire you.
Okay, so what you are talking about here is more along the lines of employers aren't necessarily concerned about the skills you claim to have. They want to know how you've used it to produce results that add value to the company.
And skills are important. I mean, obviously, yes. But if let's put it this way. Let me kind of answer that question with a side comment. You view your paycheck as payment for services rendered. An employer views your paycheck as an investment in you. And if you're not returning money on that, not necessarily money, value. It does not have to be revenue generated. It can be time saved. It can be you're doing the work of 3 people, etc. But the point is, if you are returning, or if there's a return on that investment, I'm going to keep you. This is no different than playing the stock market. If I'm going to go buy a stock and I'm going to sit on it, if I see it growing and growing, I'm going to keep it. If not, I'm going to dump it. I'm going to cut my losses and get out of it. It's the same exactly every day when people get terminated. Quite often, it has to do with the fact that they're not returning value, and somebody else they're going to be replaced with is expected, anticipated, they will return value.
Okay, and when taking a look through your YouTube channel, I noticed that you gave advice about resumes here that we've been talking about, and there's a million different people out there giving all types of advice on resumes. It's like the one document everyone agrees that you need to have, but nobody agrees on how you should write it. And one of the statements that popped out to me is that your goal of the resume is to tell your story. So how exactly do you tell your story in a resume? Is this like content marketing online, or how exactly are you meaning for people to tell their story or how to tell their story in their resume?
Okay, let me tell you what. Let's go back to the job book. The first 3 chapters are about accomplishments. The next 3 chapters are about how to develop what I've designed. I've designed my own resume format. I call it the short form resume. I also call it the accomplishments-based resume. Once again, to tell the story is to do so in accomplishments. I generally do not like most resumes I look at. I've been looking at resumes now for 18 years since I helped start that first job board, and I can almost categorically tell you why your resume will not be looked at by a recruiter. Usually it's because there's too much information. There's a reason why Twitter is very, very successful. 140 characters or less. If you can give me little bite-sized nuggets of information and get me excited to call you, see, I'm about setting up your resume more as a tease. See, the resume only serves one purpose, Jacob, and that is, and to your audience, whoever's listening to this, please pay attention. This is really important. Your resume only serves one purpose, and that is to create a dialogue. You're not going to get a job from a resume. All you're hoping for is a phone call, which is why I tell people you're not looking for a job, you're looking for a phone call. So send me a resume, send me a document that's going to pique my curiosity, pique my interest. And it's not so much on telling the story, it's in telling little bitty nuggets, which are those accomplishments. Because see, you're going to take when you're working with me at this accomplishments list, a young person is going to give me 8 to 10 accomplishments. A professional is going to give me 18 to 20 accomplishments. We're going to take the very 4 best and make those and put those into the top half of your resume. The resume document is available. Anybody can look at this at rickgillis.com/resume format. If they'll go there, they can go to the bottom of the page. They can see all the documents I talk about, the accomplishments worksheet, the short form resume. The other piece about the short form resume, and it is designed to fit on one page. The reason for that is a lot of people are not aware that the resume filtering software used by the end user, the hiring authority, the HR director, whoever, they don't always, but they can set their filtering to only scan one page. Now, if they're only scanning one page and you have some rich, robust keywords on pages 2, 3, and 4, you may get missed and overlooked. And remember, this is a piece of software that is looking at your document prior to a real human person looking at it. So you may not even get in the mix, which is another reason, and this might turn our whole conversation around a little bit, Jacob, but this is another reason why I have added a keyword section at the bottom of my resume, which is, these are the terms actually extracted from the job posting that are placed at the bottom of this document, and they are there to play the game of getting through the resume filter. And I have no problem saying playing the game. You have to game the system. You have to successfully navigate that resume filtering software. Even smaller companies these days are now starting to use this software because it's very inexpensive. But one page, and I don't care if you have 60 years of experience, I can show people how to condense that experience and put it on one page. I have created my format based on this. People like my resume. Recruiters really like my resume in the sense that right off the bat, we don't start off with 200 words of a summary that is a bunch of fluff. Not everybody in the world is a hard-working, hard-charging, dependable, motivated. You know, all those words are fluff. And every recruiter has seen them over and over and over, and they look right past that. Get me to the point where you're going to, once again, I know I'm repeating myself, but get me to the point really quickly when I look at your resume to tell me how you're going to add value. That is the key to a resume. And just going on and on and on and saying, I did this and I did this and I can do that and I can do this and I can do that and I did this, until you tell me what the net result of that was, it makes no difference. It makes no difference how much fluff in there. I mean, I've seen resumes that were, I had one guy review his resume, it was 30 pages long. And I just flat told him, I said, dude, cut this thing down and I'll look at it because I'm not going to waste my time. I said, you need a blog, not a resume. And he shortened it to 6 pages. And I started laughing again, and I said, I'm not even going to waste my time with this. Nobody is going to read 6 pages. This guy wanted to make sure everybody knew everything about him, and quite frankly, that'll work against you. Leave a lot of the fluff out. Give me a lot of white space. I'm a real big proponent of white space on a resume. Make me call you. Remember, the resume is for creating a dialogue. do something compelling on that document that gets me to call you so I can ask you questions to fill in that space. Guess what? When you're asking me questions, that's called an interview. That's really the important part of this whole thing.
Okay, so when taking a look at this, if I understand you, they don't want to know everything about your background, everything about your history. They only want to know the parts that relate to the job or the problem that they need solved, and you want to leave mystery. You don't want to try and close on the first date, so to speak, but rather you want to, to I don't know, get them interested, get them curious, so that they reach out to you because they want to know more about how you're going to solve their problem.
You know, the reason I started laughing at that, Jacob, is because I used to tell people when we started the very first job board in this region, and let me tell you, at that time, Career Builder and Monster were the only ones out, and Career Builder at that time was still called Career Mosaic. They were a software company. They weren't even a website yet. That's how far back I go. But people used to ask me, because we were absolute pioneers in this industry here in Houston, and Houston's the fourth largest city in the nation. And I visited with a lot of very big, prominent companies, of which you would, of course, know, Exxon and Marathon, and before they were Continental Airlines, before they became United, and Compaq before they became HP. I called on all these companies, and everywhere I went, they were very curious to know, but I used to tell them, hey, we're just a dating service. We hope that you're going to kiss on the first date, but you might not. We hope you get married. We hope you make little babies. That's not our business. As a job board, our business was to make an introduction. Hopefully it's successful. You shake hands, you bring somebody in, you start learning more about them. So your point was exactly correct. Let's face it, the internet is about connecting. That's what the internet's about. The internet is the most elaborate, extensive library in the world for gathering information, but its primary and sole function is for people to connect. That is dating. That's dating. It's a dating service. We create committees, we create groups, we create networks. LinkedIn, that's nothing but a gigantic network. Facebook, all of these different platforms are served to bring us closer together. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm in the dating business. I'm really hoping somebody's going to like you and want to call you up and say, yeah, I like a guy wearing of course I know that the audience can't see this, but I want to meet this guy who wears a red shirt and, is on the other side of a video screen. Now I want to meet in person. I'm describing you, by the way, just so the audience, they don't know what we're doing here. But anyway, that's what is important. So yes, I want you to provoke me. I want you to say something in your resume that's going to create a reason for me to call you. That's really fundamental. That's critically important.
Okay, and so I am now going to start telling people that if they are writing, 3, 4, 5-page resumes, that they're basically doing the equivalent of the 19-year-old dude move on a date.
Oh, okay. I'll accept that. I'll accept that. You just can't go out with all the guns blazing first time out. Now, I will tell you that I have a strategy, and my strategy in the process I work people through when I work with people in the job search piece, when they hire me bring me on as a coach and they become my client. The 3-step process is this. I require an accomplishments inventory, and that is the heavy lifting part of this process, after which we then create a short form resume, which is a 1-page document, after which we follow that with a long form resume, that can be 2 and 3 and 4 pages. The fact is, if you get a call from somebody and they ask you for a resume, don't send the short form, send the long form. Go in with guns blazing. Tell them all about you. If they call you, if you know somebody who's going to make an introduction on your behalf, and that's why I say if by invitation or by introduction, you go in with your long form or traditional resume. If you're going online, if you're applying to a position, go with your short form to successfully navigate the software and to get the recruiter to call you. Now, all of my clients get this phone call, and I prep them for it. Hey, Jacob, I got your resume, but I need more information. And you say, Rick, listen, thank you for the call. I sent you my abbreviated short form resume to get your attention. Let me have your email address. I'll send you my long form or my traditional resume. And we create a dialogue. And you want to have that long form ready And on that phone call, you say, hey, did you get it? Let's go ahead and start the interview right now. Don't let go of anybody that's could potentially in a position to hire you. Keep them on the line.
Okay, and so sending the long form resume as your first introduction, is that what you see as the biggest mistake most job hunters are making today? Or is there something else that is a bigger mistake than that being made by today's job hunters?
Yeah, job seekers think it's all about them, and it's not. That's the answer to that question, and that is for time immemorial behind us and going forward. The biggest mistake is it's not about you. When you're applying for a job, let me tell you what, and this is something I really try to put across to young people. Consider you put yourself in the position of the employer. Tell them what the employer wants to hear, and I don't mean just tell them. Plan on producing. But the fact is, for you to go in and say, how many days off do I get a year? Do I get vacation? How much vacation do I get? What's the salary? What's the pay range? I have no time for you. Like I said earlier, my investment in you is my paycheck. And if I don't see you delivering, but the person who comes in and expresses the need to add value to the organization, who understands how expensive it is just to open the doors every morning, to turn on the lights, to get equipment, to obtain new software, to hire a support staff in support of, to have manufacturing and inventory. The person who recognizes that and how important that is the person who's going to get the job. They may not be the best candidate either. And I will tell you, 95% of all jobs do not go to necessarily the most qualified person. They go to the person who makes the best presentation and expressing this value. Now, I want to tell you something, Jacob, and it's a story I've put in my last 2 or 3 books. And yes, that's repetitive, but it's a valuable story. And the reason I tell you this is because, well, let me tell you a story. You'll understand. I was when I was 18 years old, I grew up in a family hardware store. It was basically a general store. And we had shut that store down, and I graduated from high school, and I went to my first employment interview, and it was for a truck driver, helper, forklift driver. I was applying to work in a lumber yard. Now, I showed up in a suit when everybody else there showed up in blue jeans and T-shirts, and that's in the days when everybody had their Marlboros and their, folded up in their short sleeve T-shirts. They had their hard hats on and their gloves in their back pocket. These were working men. And I was 18 years old, skinny as a rat. I walk in there, and I remember I can tell you candidly, Mr. Cordell Dykes interviewed me. And the only reason he gave me the job, I was so inappropriate and unprepared and inexperienced for this job. But I sat there at the age of 18, and I told Mr. Dykes, I said, Mr. Dykes, for every dollar you pay me, I'll give you back $10 in value. Now, that's a true story. Mr. Dykes' eyebrow nearly hit the ceiling. I remember him just going, what? He didn't say a word. He just looked at me, and that eyebrow is sitting on the ceiling, and he reaches back, and he grabs a hard hat, and he grabs a pair of gloves, and he throws them across the desk at me and says, be here at 7 in the morning. Well, at 7 the next morning, I showed up, and I ended up staying in that job until I left to join the U.S. Air Force. Now, the point is, I did not have that job. He was looking at me, who's this clown in a suit? Everybody else is ready to go to work. Get on a forklift, get on a truck. I'm in a suit. That telling him I was going to add value for what he was going to pay me was the reason. And let me tell you what, I did work in the lumber yard. I did unload boxcars. I moved into a forklift. I moved into truck driving. And I eventually moved inside the retail store, and I until such time as I left to join the Air Force. Honestly, going in and standing in that line, I had no business. Now, I'm using that story to illustrate, I don't care how young or how old you are, you go in, make the pitch for how you're going to bring value to the organization. You are a foot up on everybody else, regardless of their skill set, regardless of their experience. You just might get a chance.
Okay, so if I could try and sum this up, and you could tell me if this is accurate, one of the biggest mistakes that job hunters are making today is the thinking that it's all about them. Employers don't necessarily care or hire you because you need a job. They hire you because they have a problem and they think you can fix it.
Bingo. You just nailed it. I never hire anybody unless I have a problem. And the reason you nailed it, Jacob, is because I always tell people somewhere in the job posting they're expressing their pain. There is a problem. Identify that, read between the lines, and go in and express how you are the solution to that problem. That is exactly right. I don't need any problems. The only person that gets hired that I really don't want, or maybe don't need, is probably my son-in-law or my brother-in-law, or somebody who I almost have to hire but I don't want to. And the fact is, as soon as that person is not performing, they're going to get out of the way too. We're going to kick them down the line, or we're going to give them a worse job. But, unless your daddy owns a business, you're not just coming in. You're going to come in because you are going to address their problem. You are the solution. Let me prove it to you. That's how you do it. Don't say I'm a hardworking, motivated, up to the challenge individual. We don't talk like that. We come in and say, look, you got a problem. Listen, let's put it this way. Let's say I own a restaurant, a really nice upscale restaurant, and my valet parking is running people off. That's a problem. So when I start interviewing for a valet parking company or a valet parking manager, I'm going to wait to hear the person that's going to say, I can bring a smile to your customer. I'll treat their cars well. I'll get them parked well. I'll bring them back well. I'm going to make money on the back end with all the tips, and you have no problem. Because let me tell you what, that valet parking at a restaurant is the very first contact the customer has with somebody associated with your operation. It's the same as a receptionist. That's the first person that we talk to when we call a business. That person we talk to on the phone is our first contact with that business. They have to be the very best possible so that we want to continue to do business. And what does that mean? That creates revenue.
Okay. And so you're going to be able to convey some of this in your resume when you reach out to them and you're telling your story. So you got to make sure that you really read the job descriptions and tailor your resume to solve the problem that you would see in the job description. So how does one necessarily go about that? How does one scan the resume, not the resume, but the job description to figure out exactly what is the pain point and then tailor their resume to that?
Okay, Jacob, I'll tell you what, that's a good question and it's really important, but I'm the first person to tell you, you do not want to write a new resume for every job application. Now, when you're online, that's important because you got to fill, all the fields out, and you have to go, until you populate this field, you can't move to the next field. I understand all that. Applications are really powerful, they're strong, they're hard to work with, they're very difficult, they're very time consuming, which is why more and more companies are accepting LinkedIn as a resume. You can send a link to your LinkedIn profile, which is why your LinkedIn profile has to be buffed. It has to be perfect. The new resume and the new recommendation letter is LinkedIn. So that's another discussion we could have another time. But the fact is, once again, if you go back to rickgillis.com/resume format, look at my short form resume, you'll see that it's designed not to be changed for every job and every pain point. What you do change, see, I have a custom header. I have a seeking statement. Now, that's a very important piece. Like I said earlier, it's not that big 200, 300-word objective statement or summary of qualifications a lot of people waste their time putting on a resume. It says, I am seeking a position as a chemical engineer for ABC Company, reference number 12345. That's it. One sentence. Let the recruiter know exactly which job you were applying to. Make it easy for me to know who to sort this to, which hiring manager, which department this goes to. So many people don't put what they're really seeking on a resume, and as a result, recruiters go crazy having to read through this stuff and go, oh, finally, this guy wants to be in the mailroom. No, he probably didn't, but that's what was pulled out of this thing. So this is important on the short form resume. Now, after that, after the seeking statement, then I have my objective statement, which says this exactly, and it addresses that pain point you're talking about. My objective statement says something to the effect of, and this is exactly what you'll see in the book and in the samples on my website. As a result of my experience, education, and skills, I am capable of. And then you write out one sentence that addresses the pain in that job posting. And that's it. That's it. As a result of my skills, experience, and education, I am capable of generating new revenues, boom, 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 whatever that is. Then I go to the 4 accomplishments that are going to prove that statement that I extracted from the accomplishments worksheet. Then I'm going to go with an abbreviated employment history, which is going to show that I have prior experience that suits this. And then I'm going to go to my education and a very small amount of honors and awards. And lastly, I'm going to hit those keywords. Now, once again, that keyword section, and by the way, Jacob, I'll tell you, a lot of people are really skeptical about this keywords piece in a resume. Let me explain something. There's no rules to resumes. There is no rule. There are several things you should understand about a resume that could hurt you and have your resume kicked out of consideration. For instance, the software does not accept tables. It does not accept script and logos. It does not accept artwork. That little line you put across the page on your resume under your contact information, just that really attractive little formatting line, some softwares read that as a page break and go on to the next resume. So there are a lot of rules that are all written up. I've got every one of these in my book that will explain to you why this is the case. But the fact is, resume filtering software is arbitrary, and it's a pain. It's difficult. CIO.com said it's the bane of all job seekers. I agree with that. So anyway, when you get to the bottom, these keywords, a lot of people are skeptical until I tell them, go to apple.com and apply for a job at apple.com. And if you have an iTunes account, you can at least go into Apple and look at their job postings and just arbitrarily pick one and scroll through the application. They have a field in there for keywords. Apple.com has a keywords section, and that's what it is. It's just keywords, and it allows you to put in 200 characters, and you take those straight out of the job posting, so you match. So whereas a lot of people, and if it comes down to it and somebody says, what's this keywords thing down here? Blame it on me. I don't care. It's not going to hurt my feelings. Blame it on me. You saw some kid on, you saw some clown on Jacob's, career hunting website that said, hey, extract keywords from the job posting. Blame it on me. I don't care. You know what? If somebody called you, if somebody's talking to you and said, what's with these keywords? Guess what? You got a dialogue started. That's all I want you to get. That's all you're going to get from a resume is a dialogue. If somebody calls and says, why'd you do it this way? I mean, I've had people that flat told me that I have one guy who got hired by a global corporation, energy, oil, gas, gold mining. I don't mind him telling you who it was, BHP Billiton. Look them up. They're out of Australia. They're global. And he had fully 30% of his page covered in keywords, 30% of a one-page document covered in keywords. And it's because he was an IT professional. And he had all kinds of anagrams and all kinds of information he wanted to put there, every certification in software. He got the call, and the first thing they said is, they tossed his resume at him and said, what's this? And he said, hey, it got me here, didn't it? And he got the job. He got the job. So there's no rules to resumes. However, there are formatting dictates. And those are very, very important that you understand and recognize. No photographs. The person who puts that 34-point bold header on their resume, the person that just graduated, who puts it up there 34-point and bold, it's really big on the page, that's going to get your resume rejected. You're not even going to be considered because it will not accept, the software will not accept a font probably over 16, 18 points.
Okay, and so I want to get some clarification because you brought up the keywords quite a bit. And so some of the suggestions that I've heard of in the past, and I'm thinking that you are taking a slightly modified approach or slightly different approaches to put the keywords in throughout the resume, whereas you're saying just have a section full of keywords, and that's what's going to help get you past the software, so you're not writing awkwardly worded statements in order to get keywords in there. You're getting in the words that provide value, and then you put in the keywords that the software is going to recognize to move you forward.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And let me tell you what, I prefer that you be highly efficient in your job search and be able to get out 10 or 15 applications a day, resumes submitted a day, versus 1 or 2 a day if you're rewriting your resume every time for every application. That's ludicrous. That's ludicrous. All you have to do, you're rewriting your software. And let me tell you, this is one of those things that drives me crazy because I see all these certifications for certified resume writer. Well, what does that mean? That meant somebody sent some money to some organization, they got a certificate. There's no such thing as a certified resume. There is no standard for resumes. No such thing exists in the world anywhere. So that said, why don't we go with efficiency? Why don't we go with, see, I helped grow this business back in 1997. I watched us build, and I can tell you exactly how I came up with keywords, this whole strategy, but we don't have enough time for this, for me to do that. However, I can tell you how I came up with this, why I came up with this, and once again, I wouldn't tell you that because I don't want people to get any bad ideas, because the original technology was much more simpler and not near as intelligent as it is now. This software is almost becoming artificial intelligence. That, combined with big data, is creating some enormously sophisticated, powerful resume filtering software.
Well, okay, and there's only one more question that I wanted to follow up with your statements about resumes. So we want to make sure that the resume is tailored to show that we're going to solve the pain or the problem of the company. But at the same time, you're stating that you don't want to, custom write each individual resume. So how do you apply to multiple companies, and maybe you're looking, as some job hunters, you're looking for different positions because, you're just trying to find something quick. So how do you tailor the resume to show that you're going to solve a problem if it's not custom tailored to each company and position?
You will have done this as a result of that accomplishments. Now, I will tell you that when I'm working with a client, I've told you that I want to pull 4 accomplishments from that accomplishment worksheet. You may find that for this application, because here's the deal. When you work my short form resume, you're going to modify the seeking statement every time. I am seeking a position with. You're going to change that up. That has to be, by the way, the company name does count in the resume filtering software. Because people ask me, well, why did you say I'm seeking a job with Dell Computer Company? Doesn't the recruiter know they're sitting at Dell Computer Company? Well, yes, but the software gives you a point up. At least one. Some of the softwares will give you 2 points up for using the name in the resume. That's a fact. You're going to change the seeking statement. You're going to modify the objective statement, which addresses that problem right there. You may massage those accomplishments, and instead of using 1, 2, 3, and 4 from your list, you may decide that this position would better be served by using 1, 2, 7, 8, and modifying those to discuss that position specifically, to say, I did this previously, therefore it fits this. Now, my experience says that generally your top 4 accomplishments you don't need to change. However, to go another piece, because that's really a good question, Jacob, particularly, like you said, for the person who's just looking for any job and or the brand new either high school or entry-level college graduate who is just looking for that first opportunity. This is where your accomplishments are going to be more generic, if you will. And I don't mean that in a nasty way, but say, I have no problem telling college students to use a specific class that they did really well in that would support a job posting. For instance, let's say I'm looking for a landscape architecture position and I have no experience yet, but I really did well in my landscape architectural classes, the forming, the formatting, the CAD design work, all that kind of stuff supported it. You can extract that stuff, and that'll be very broad. That'll be very broad, because what you're really talking about here is broader accomplishments than pinpoint specific for the more professional. In other words, somebody who has 15 years experience and is looking to move into a management or make a change to another company and utilizing these accomplishments, they're going to be more pinpoint. If you're an engineer, it's been engineering, an architect's been architecting, a lawyer who's been lawyering, you're going to want your accomplishments to be specific. So all this does work, and once again, and I hate to deflect it, but if we need, I do a full day workshop on this stuff. Go to the job book. It really is well explained in there. And let me tell you another thing too, Jacob. I take email from people. I'm an open networker on LinkedIn. I accept everybody's invitation, hopefully, not to recommend or reference anybody, but hopefully that I can make a connection for somebody throughout my connections. But people are always surprised that I answer my phone and I respond when somebody needs some support and help. So, now until you've read the book, and by the way, I have a new video series out now, which is the job book on video. It's available through my website. It'll shortly, in the next 60 days or so, based on whenever this appears, probably by Christmas 2014, this video should be on Amazon, and it is the job book. And so I'm going to refer you back to the job book. The question's answered in there.
Sorry I have to cut it off right there. We'll be picking up again where we left off next week, where we will get more into the gamification and social media. Alright, so there's a lot of information still yet to come. Please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a thing, and share this with anybody you know looking for their next career. So until next time, happy job hunting, and I hope this takes your success to the next level.